You're listening to the Underscore Transformation Podcast, your practical guide to business transformation.
Welcome to the Underscore Transformation Podcast. This is episode 11. My name is Joe Ailes.
I'm Jason West.
And together with the founders of Underscore. The final point on our checklist.
Hooray!
The business case. Okay, so alongside a carefully constructed solution design, a robust business case is one of the most important outputs from the scoping phase. It's one of the primary documents used to assess the viability of the transformation, and it's typically essential to secure, frankly, large sums of cash ultimately, and buy-in from executives running the organization.
Yeah.
So, Jason, where do we start?
That's a very good question. So, I think probably the first place to start is in format. So normally organizations will have pretty well-defined templates for investment appraisal and business case. So kind of use your standard company templates because that's what the exec are expecting. Now, what we found in working with a number of different organizations is those business case templates can be quite a summary level. And actually to work out the real costs, the real benefits, there's quite a bit of work you need to do underneath that. And this is where all of your solution design that you've done, all your as-is assessment that you've done really comes to the fore. So your as-is assessment tells you what your current cost base is. So that's your current run costs of the function, your people costs, your facilities costs, your systems, any outsource costs, any external third-party suppliers to your function, and also any addressable spend areas. So if in procurement all of your external third-party spend that your procurement function should hopefully be getting better value from, it's probably part of your business case. Even in HR, you've got significant amount of recruitment spend, training spend, contractors, and there's that often thorny issue of does contractor spend sit in procurement? Does it sit in HR? Who's actually accountable quite a lot of the time? No one's accountable, and it kind of falls between the cracks, but there's massive opportunity there. Often millions of pounds worth of upside by managing your contractor workforce better. So whatever that format is, absolutely use it, but actually you're probably going to need something underneath that really breaks your cost down into a more granular level. And you work with your financial controller or your finance business partner, whoever's been assigned, and you firstly make sure you have someone from finance.
Yes, support in this space is really important
to this program. Even if you're a finance function going through transformation, you need a named individual that's going to work with your program lead on this to bring that kind of external challenge, especially around benefits. And you need to ensure that any benefits that you put into your business case have been through a robust level of scrutiny internally. From your finance team, and they've kind of really put you through the ringer on it because as you take your business case through for approval, you want them stood next to you, or ideally presenting the business case on your behalf. Because if the CFO asks the financial controller, do you sign off on these numbers, and they go, oh, I've not seen them before.
You don't want to be in that place.
No. So one sure way of kind of having to at least go again, or
it just gives it a whole load of more credibility, doesn't it? If you've done that due diligence and if you've got the right people around the table.
And the other area to really look at is the treatment of the costs. So how much can you actually capitalize versus goes into operational expenses? When cloud projects first came along, we used to have quite a lot of trouble with getting auditors and financial controllers to actually agree that the implementation costs were actually developing an asset.
Exactly.
that we've not really seen that issue in recent years. That's kind of gone away. But it is important to pay attention to the areas that you can capitalise, because that just makes your return on investment just a little bit easier to manage if you're spreading your implementation costs, or a proportion of your implementation costs over 5-7 years, whatever the expected life of the asset is. Getting that kind of agreed, mapped out is key. Being clear about where you've got systems that you have today that you're going to retire, that's baked into your business case. Any changes in headcount, whether that or operating model cost, I should say, might be headcount reduction in one area, increase in another area. Right. You might need to build a new facility.
A site.
Absolutely. You might need to enter outsourcing contracts. All that needs to be factored in. Challenge, certainly that I've found with a lot of internal business case templates, is they tend to be geared quite or skewed quite towards capital investment. It's buildings, it's IT systems, and that's fine in and of itself. But what they tend to miss out is a lot of the broader kind of strategic objectives. Not all of them, but it tends to be an area that you need to kind of spend a bit of time and find ways of kind of getting them added in. And I think there's kind of two problems you can have with the business case. It can either be kind of too project focused rather than transformation focused, or too asset focused. That it's only considering time, cost, benefit sort of arguments, and it's kind of quite transactional.
And it's missing that. Okay, how's this going to enable me to deliver my business vision, my strategic objectives for the organisation as a whole? And sometimes they're harder to quantify, right? So and you do get into number with business cases. It does force you down into number crunching. And ultimately, it's a bottom line return on investment decision. And some of these things are not easy to quantify.
Especially for functional transformation, which tends to be it's more enabling. It's far more strategic than, we're going to put up this new building, we can put more people in it, and we're going to have a better use of space and lower desk costs and those sorts of things. So you can really focus too much on those hard, cashable, easy to measure savings that drives, you to perhaps have an overly simplistic view of the world. The real risk there is that it underplays the amount of change management that needs to happen. And potentially you won't have sufficient budget set aside for program costs. So those change management costs, portfolio management costs, it's too simplified. And if you don't have enough budget set aside, you can really fail to win hearts and minds of people, because you haven't got adequate resource or budget set aside to really pay attention to it. And you might deliver a new system, some new processes on time, on budget, everybody's happy, but actually, over time, the costs creep back in. And it's because you haven't really considered the complete view of the solution, and the people element of the change is kind of really key to that. But on the flip side, we've all seen business cases that are very fluffy, that only talk about strategic benefits or just poorly defined benefits.
The poorly defined benefits, and a lot of benefits there have actually been claimed elsewhere in your organisation as well. So you've got to be mindful of that you're not claiming to deliver something tangible that's actually being claimed in a different program. In your organisation. If somebody manages to get a business case through an exec approval that is really fluffy, claiming benefits that are stored elsewhere or attributed to a different program, I'd be surprised. But they do happen. They do happen.
The real challenge comes when you get to the end of your program, everything's gone live, stuff's happened, it's in operation, and then you do a look back 6 months later to say, did we actually derive any benefit on this? Let's look at that business case, and there's no metrics in it. There's no measures. You've got no means of knowing whether you have delivered greater employee engagement or sort of whatever it may be,
Yeah.
a reduction in cost, but from what and to what. So,
Yes.
yeah. So a good transformation business case will have this kind of mix of hard cashable savings or benefits. It doesn't have to be savings, but hard cashable benefits and non-cashable value or strategic benefits. So getting that balance right is key.
You're listening to the Underscore Transformation Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Underscore, the transformation capability specialists. To find out more, visit underscore-group.com.
One of the other areas that can trip you up is your option analysis. So if you're going to present a business case, you need to be really clear what options you've considered. And if that option selection isn't robust, you will get rightly challenged on it. So the first thing to consider is what is the do-nothing scenario? And you need to have fully costed that. You need to have written out a business case that says, okay, here are the costs and benefits of doing nothing. And you would anticipate there's quite a few disbenefits of doing nothing, of keeping the status quo, because otherwise, why would you do anything?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But if you haven't, as you've gone through the scoping phase, being really clear with the exec at kind of key gate reviews, here's the options that we've considered. We're taking these ones out of scope now for these reasons, whether it's value, whether it's cost, whether it's strategic direction, whether it's technical, whatever the reasons are. If you haven't had that discussion, or you have had the discussion and delays have happened and you've not kept a record of it, and the challenge will be you get to your final business case, you think everybody's on board, but actually at the last minute they go, hold on, why haven't you considered that?
Exactly. Having staged reviews throughout your scoping phase is really important. Really important. Getting your exec steerco established where we're up front. And we've got different episodes that talk about that, don't we?
Yes, yeah.
Some of our previous episodes talk about the importance of governance structure and getting that right up front.
Yeah.
This cannot be presented for the first time to a bunch of execs. They're experiencing this at a point where you're asking them to put their hand in their pocket.
Yes, yeah.
So you've got to take them on a journey
Yeah.
to get to a destination that says, right, this is the right, I'm presenting a business case with this option A, option B is still maybe two options at that point. But remember that we've explored option C, D, E, F, and we've excluded those options for these reasons because they weren't practical, they weren't economic, for whatever.
Yeah.
And now we're presented with these two.
Yes.
And we've gone into, and it's those two you put a huge amount of detail into them.
Yeah. It's the fun part, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's the it's definitely the art and the science of the transformation.
And this is all sponsor led.
Yeah,
this is all sponsor led. This is the sponsor standing up, articulating the vision and why this program is so important.
Yeah,
why that investment is so important for the success of ultimately the business, really, because you don't do this in isolation.
Yes, yeah, and the sponsor has to be across the absolute detail of the business case.
Yeah,
if they're not prepared as they go into that meeting to have the CFO challenge them on their NPV calculation or their tax treatment or the assumptions that are driving this size of organization or market entry in this country or whatever the fundamentals are to the business case, you're in real trouble. It's one of those wonderful, Dragon's Den, Shark Tank type moments where, the investors come up and they've done their wonderful pitch, and then one of the investors asks them, "So then, tell me about your numbers," and it just kind of turn into a sweaty mess. You don't want to be putting a sponsor in that position, and as a sponsor, you don't want to ever be there. You've got to know your numbers. You really have to know your numbers when you're asking people to make a set of investment decisions. Absolutely. And the other thing to remember as a sponsor is that you've got to be 100% confident that this is the best set of numbers that you could possibly be putting forward. If you haven't got adequate budget to deliver on the solution design that you're putting forward at the same time as your business case and the benefits that you are personally committing to deliver to this organization, that could be potentially career limiting in quite a significant way. So it's really critical to get into the absolute detail of the business case. And we have touched on in previous episodes the importance of sponsors getting into the detail in certain areas. This is one of them.
And again, I mean, the components of a business case, you talked a lot about the structure of it, but actually there are, we've talked in previous episodes about the things that you can do to help you create that robust business case. Doing voice of the customer, understanding what business problems you're trying to solve, be very clear on those. Where do you stack up in against other organizations? How do you compare against them? So doing benchmarking, benchmark your processes, benchmark your costs, benchmark your effectiveness. Understand what people spend their time doing. Really understand what your operating model is today. And where do you have capability gaps, and what are the capabilities that you need to plug into your function to allow the business to be more successful. Align your operating model to what the business is trying to achieve. If people are listening to this episode for the first time, really suggest that they listen to all the previous ones, because there's an awful lot of content in previous episodes that lead up to having a robust business case. You've got all of the inputs there. It's not rocket science, right? This is not rocket science. But if you follow a thorough process, you're more likely to get something off the ground.
Absolutely.
You're more likely to be ready to present a case for change to a bunch of execs and be really compelling. Because one of the other points that we talked about previously is really defining our vision statement. What's the my vision, my mission, my strategic objectives for the program. This is what this program is going to deliver for you. Step one, and it can be visionary statements within a set of key deliverables and key objectives, underpinned by a set of data that you'd have gathered from the various sort of tools that we've talked about.
And this is kind of where the storytelling part of it comes in. That case for change, that story that you're telling the exec about, we were here, it was a bad place, we actually went out and we talked to you and you told us this was happening, and we talked to people in the business and these other things were happening, and by the way, some of the stuff that you thought was bad, it's a lot worse, and you didn't even know about that thing over there that's just caused us X amount of pain. But actually, we've got a solution. We've done work. We've looked at lots of different options, and where we need to be is over here, and we're going to get there. And we've planned all this out, and we've got sort of robust plans, and we've thought about our risks, and we're doing this in a really structured, well-defined way. And we're going to get you to that wonderful promised land that we've just described in sort of glowing terms. And here's the numbers that stand behind it. So although we focus quite a bit on this stage in this episode on the detail of the business case, you're absolutely right. That case for change, the story, is just as important as the numbers. The numbers aren't going to secure the investment, and they're going to make sure that it's going to pass an investment.
It's just the investment assessment, isn't it?
If the exec team don't believe that you as an individual sponsor are going to get this done, they're not going to sign it off. Well,
they can. It might feel like a leap of faith for some of them. So it'll be I can see where you're trying to take this, and I can see that the destination is a good destination. Don't quite know if the benefits really stack up against what you're describing, because we don't have the evidence to support it. I've got some commentary around what the as is and what the pains are, but actually I've got no evidence to support it either. We often talk about, if you're there's an awful lot of clowns with lots of opinion, right? And actually, if you've got a set of data, you're an informed individual.
Yes.
And it's not data paralysis or data for data's sake.
Yeah.
It's about having what data do I need to help me construct. And it's not about getting the business case off the ground. It's actually for the sponsor to actually assess, is this a problem? Is the problem worth solving?
Yes. Yeah.
It's not just a case of, let's just do this to get a business case. No, you're doing a scoping phase to really understand, is there a problem in my organization that I need to fix? And if everything comes back saying, no, everything's wonderful, no, nothing needs fixing, you don't need a business case.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everything's fine.
Yeah. You only, the business case is the final stage of a series of analysis that you've done throughout a period of 6, 12 months, however long it's taken you.
Yeah.
To get to a point where you say, actually, do you know what? We do need to do something different.
Yes.
And please, and these are the reasons why, because this is all the analysis we've done, and this is what the future is going to look like.
Yeah. So,
yes, this is our final episode, isn't it?
It is. Final episode of season one.
Season one.
So you get through your business case, it gets approved, you have a huge celebration because it's the end of the beginning.
You've not even started.
No, you have no idea what's about to hit you. The real hard work starts now. But enjoy it whilst you can.
Yes.
Go out, have some drinks if that's your thing. Have a nice meal. Yeah. Celebrate with the team. It's really important to celebrate these things. So please go out, celebrate with your team. But get ready for the next phase, and we're going to cover that in season 2. That's covering build.
Yeah.
So checklist coming out soon on build. It's a bit more involved than the scoping, it's fair to say. So we have got a couple of fantastic interviews that are coming up in the next couple of episodes as we kind of go over the Christmas break. So these are conversations with really experienced, really great transformation professionals that we've worked with and we know by reputation sometimes.
And we certainly value their opinion and their thoughts. And,
absolutely.
I think the listeners will appreciate hearing other people's opinions other than just our own.
Absolutely. So as ever, please stay subscribed, hopefully, or subscribe if you like what you hear. Please do comment and rate us on whatever your podcasting app is, and go out and tell your friends. So thank you, and that wraps up season 1.
Yeah, see you in season 2.
This podcast was brought to you by Underscore, the transformation capability specialists. To find out more, visit underscore-group.com. You can subscribe to the feed via your favorite podcasting app. You can contribute to the conversation via our WhatsApp group. And if you would like to feature in a future recording, contact us on social media to find out more.